comes a moment in life when you realize you have been living more in your thoughts than in your actual life. You replay conversations that already ended. You rehearse arguments that may never happen. You imagine worst-case scenarios before giving yourself a chance to experience case possibilities. And slowly, without even noticing, your mind becomes louder than your reality. Living in your head can feel safe. It feels like preparation. It feels like protection. You tell yourself that overthinking will prevent failure, embarrassment, or rejection. But what it often does is prevent joy. It prevents presence. It prevents peace, because while you are analyzing life, life is still moving forward. The moment you stop living in your head, everything changes. You begin to experience moments instead of narrating them. You begin to listen without preparing your next response. You begin to without rehearsing every possible outcome. And in that shift, you discover something powerful. Most of the fear was created by thought, not reality. Your mind is a beautiful tool, but it was never meant to be your prison. Thoughts are meant to guide you, not control you. When you constantly question yourself, doubt your decisions, and predict failure, you disconnect from your intuition, disconnect from your courage. You disconnect from the present moment, which is the only place life truly happens. When you step out of your head and into your life, you reclaim your power. You trust yourself more. You forgive yourself faster. You take action instead of waiting for perfect certainty. And you realize that clarity often comes after movement, not before it. Presence changes relationships. When you are fully present, people feel seen. They feel heard. You stop filtering every interaction through insecurity or comparison. You begin to respond authentically instead of defensively, and that authenticity builds deeper connection. Presence changes your confidence. Overthinking feeds self-doubt. Action builds self-trust. When you stop living in your head, you start gathering real experiences instead of imagined fears. Each step forward becomes proof that you are capable, resilient, and stronger than your thoughts suggested. Everything changes because you change. You shift from analysis to awareness, from fear to faith, from hesitation to courage. And when you do, life opens in ways you could never predict from inside your mind alone. The moment you stop living in your head is the moment you start living fully. And that is where freedom begins. Overthinking creates fear that often does not exist in reality because the mind has the ability to imagine outcomes far more dramatic and painful than what is actually happening. When you overthink, you're not responding to facts, you are reacting to possibilities. The problem is those possibilities are usually shaped by insecurity, past experiences, and imagined worst-case scenarios rather than present truth. The mind begins to create stories, and the body responds as if those stories are real. Fear that comes from overthinking feels real. Your heart may race, your stomach may tighten, and your thoughts may spiral. But what you are reacting to is not an event, it is a projection. You replay conversations and interpret them in the harshest way. You predict rejection before giving someone the chance to accept you. You assume failure before you even begin. In doing so, you suffer twice, once in imagination and again in anticipation. Overthinking often disguises itself as preparation. You may believe that by analyzing every possible outcome, you are protecting yourself. But constant analysis rarely creates safety. Instead, it creates hesitation and doubt. It convinces you that you are not ready, not capable, or not worthy. It magnifies small uncertainties into overwhelming threats. What might have been a simple challenge becomes a mountain built entirely by thought. The mind tends to focus on what could go wrong rather than what could go right. This bias fuels fear. A delayed response becomes a sign of rejection. A minor mistake becomes proof of incompetence. A new opportunity becomes a potential failure. Overthinking attaches negative meaning to neutral events, and once meaning is attached, fear grows stronger. In reality, most situations are far less dramatic than the stories created by the mind. Conversations are often misunderstood rather than hostile. Opportunities are uncertain but not catastrophic. Mistakes are temporary rather than defining. When you step back and observe your thoughts, you begin to see how exaggerated they can become. Awareness reveals that fear created by overthinking is often disconnected from actual evidence. Overthinking also steals the present moment. While you are imagining future disasters, life is happening right now. You miss joy because you are bracing for disappointment. You miss connection because you are analyzing every word. You miss opportunity because you are rehearsing failure. Fear rooted in imagination prevents you from experiencing what is truly in front of you. Breaking the cycle of overthinking begins with recognizing that thoughts are not facts. Just because your mind suggests a negative outcome does not mean it will happen. Learning to question your thoughts creates distance from them. You can ask yourself, what proof do I actually have? Or is this fear based on assumption? This simple pause often weakens the grip of imagined fear. Taking action is another way to confront overthinking. Fear thrives in inaction. When you step forward, even in small ways, you gather real evidence. You replace imagined failure with lived experience. Often, you discover that what you feared was never as overwhelming as you believed. Overthinking may feel like control, but it often leads to paralysis. True control comes from grounding yourself in reality rather than imagination. It comes from trusting that you can handle what actually happens instead of fearing what might happen. In the end, overthinking creates shadows that appear larger than life. But when you turn toward reality with awareness and courage, those shadows shrink. You begin to see that much of the fear you carried existed only in thought. And when you release that imagined fear, you create space for confidence, clarity, and peace to grow. Presence brings clarity that analysis alone cannot provide, because clarity is not only the result of thinking deeply, it is the result of being fully aware. Analysis lives in the mind, but presence lives in the moment. When you are constantly analyzing, you are often disconnected from what is actually happening. You are interpreting, predicting, and dissecting, but you are not fully experiencing. Presence shifts your attention from mental noise to immediate reality, and in that shift, understanding becomes clearer and more grounded. Analysis has value. It helps you evaluate information, learn from mistakes, make thoughtful decisions. But when analysis becomes excessive, it turns into overthinking. It begins to complicate simple situations and create confusion instead of clarity. The more you analyze, the more perspectives you generate, and sometimes the more uncertain you feel. Presence interrupts this cycle by bringing your focus back to what is real and tangible right now. When you are present, you observe without immediately judging. You listen without preparing your response. You notice your emotions without trying to control or suppress them. This awareness provides this type of clarity that analysis cannot reach, because it is rooted in direct experience rather than interpretation. Presence allows you to see things as they are, not as your fears or assumptions suggest. Clarity born from presence is often simple. It does not require complicated reasoning. Sometimes you stop thinking so hard and simply sit with a situation, the answer becomes obvious. You realize what feels aligned and what feels forced. You recognize what is necessary and what is unnecessary. Presence quiets the internal debate and allows intuition to surface. In relationships, presence creates understanding that analysis cannot achieve. You can analyze someone's words repeatedly, trying to decode hidden meanings. True clarity comes from being fully engaged in the conversation. When you are present, you notice tone, body language, and subtle emotions. You respond with empathy rather than suspicion. This level of connection cannot be reached through thought alone. Presence also reduces mental clutter. Analysis often pulls you the past or pushes you into the future. You replay mistakes or anticipate outcomes. Presence keeps you grounded in the current moment. In this space, many worries lose their intensity because they are not happening now. Clarity emerges when you realize that what you feared exists only in imagination. Decisions made from presence tend to feel more authentic. Instead of being driven by endless pros and cons, you make choices that align with your values and inner sense of truth. This does not mean you ignore logic, but you balance it with awareness. The result is a decision that feels steady rather than forced. Presence also strengthens self-trust. When you are constantly analyzing, you may begin to doubt your instincts. You look for external validation or endless reassurance. When you practice presence, you learn to trust what you observe and feel in the moment. This trust builds confidence and reduces dependence on overanalysis. Life moves quickly, and clarity often requires stillness. Presence provides that stillness. It creates space where thoughts can settle and insight can rise naturally. Instead of chasing answers through constant mental effort, you allow them to unfold through awareness. In the end, analysis is a tool, but presence is a state of being. Analysis can inform you, but presence connects you to truth. When you combine thoughtful thinking with grounded awareness, clarity becomes deeper and more reliable. By choosing presence, you step out of mental confusion and into a space where understanding feels calm, simple, and clear. Action builds confidence faster than mental preparation ever will. Because confidence is not created in thought, it is created in experience. You can prepare in your mind for days, weeks, even years, imagining every possible outcome and rehearsing every possible step. But until you move, nothing truly changes. Mental preparation may make you feel temporarily ready, but real confidence comes from proof, and proof only comes through action. When you stay in preparation mode for too long, fear often disguises itself as productivity. You tell yourself you are waiting for the right time, the perfect plan, or complete certainty. But perfection rarely arrives. The longer you wait, the more intimidating the action becomes. Doubt grows stronger in delay. Confidence weakens in hesitation. Meanwhile, one small step forward could have already begun building belief in yourself. Action interrupts overthinking. The mind has a way of magnifying risks and minimizing strengths. It creates scenarios where failure seems inevitable and success feels distant. When you act, you confront those imagined fears with reality. Often, you discover that what you feared was exaggerated. Even if things do not go perfectly, you gain valuable experience. That experience comes evidence that you can handle challenges, adjust, and continue. Confidence grows from evidence. Each action you take becomes a reference point for future courage. You apply for the opportunity, you speak up in the meeting, you have the difficult conversation, you start the project. Every step proves that you are capable of moving through discomfort. This proof reshapes your self-perception. You begin to see yourself not as someone who only thinks about change, but as someone who creates it. Mental preparation has its place. It allows you to strategize and visualize success. But preparation without execution becomes stagnation. The mind can only simulate so much. It cannot replicate the growth that comes from real experience. When you step into action, you learn lessons that thinking alone could never teach you. You learn how to adapt, how to recover, and how to persevere. Action also builds resilience. When you try, you risk imperfection. But imperfection is where growth lives. Each attempt strengthens your ability to handle setbacks. Instead of fearing mistakes, you begin to see them as part of the process. This shift builds confidence far more effectively than waiting for flawless readiness. There is also momentum in action. One small step often leads to another. Progress creates motivation. The more you move, the more capable you feel. The more capable you feel, the more willing you are to take bigger steps. Confidence compounds through consistent action, not silent preparation. Many people wait until they feel confident before acting. But confidence is usually the result of acting, not the prerequisite. You rarely feel fully ready at the beginning. Courage often appears after you begin. The act of starting changes your internal narrative from doubt to determination. Action grounds you in reality. Instead of imagining outcomes, you experience them. Instead of predicting failure, you gather feedback. This grounding reduces fear and builds self-trust. You realize that you are stronger than your hesitation suggested. In the end, action transforms potential into progress. Mental preparation may comfort you, but it not expand you. Movement does. Each step forward builds belief, each effort strengthens resilience, and each experience reinforces capability. Confidence is earned through doing, not just thinking. When you choose action over endless preparation, you accelerate growth and discover the courage you were waiting for was built through the very act of moving forward. Trust yourself quiets the noise of self-doubt because self-trust acts as an anchor in moments of uncertainty. Self-doubt is often loud, persistent, and convincing. It questions your abilities, challenges your worth, defies your mistakes, it replays past failures, and predicts future disappointments. When you lack self-trust, every decision feels heavy and every risk feels dangerous. But when you begin to trust yourself, that in turn slowly loses its power. Self-doubt thrives in uncertainty and comparison. It grows when you measure your journey against others, when you seek constant validation, and you wait for approval before making a move. The mind begins to ask, what if you fail? If you are not good enough? What if others know more than you? These questions create hesitation. They freeze action and weaken confidence. Trusting yourself interrupts this pattern. It replaces what if with even if. Even if you struggle, you will learn. Even if you fail, you will recover. Trusting yourself does not mean believing you will always succeed. It means believing you can handle whatever outcome arises. That belief is powerful. It shifts your focus from fear of failure to faith in resilience. When you trust yourself, mistakes no longer define you. They become lessons rather than labels. This mindset reduces the intensity of self-doubt because you know that one setback cannot erase your capability. Self-trust is built through experience. Every time you make a decision and stand by it, you strengthen it. Every time you honor your boundaries, speak your truth, or follow through on a commitment, you reinforce your reliability to yourself. Over time, this consistency creates a quiet confidence. You no longer second-guess every choice. You move with steadiness instead of anxiety. When you trust yourself, you rely less on external opinions. Advice can be helpful, but constant dependence on others weakens your inner voice. Self-doubt becomes louder when you prioritize outside approval over internal guidance. Trusting yourself means listening to your intuition, even when it feels uncomfortable. It means accepting that not everyone will understand your choices, and that is acceptable. Self-trust also quiets overthinking. When you believe in your ability to decide wisely, you spend less time analyzing every possible outcome. You understand that clarity often comes from action. This reduces mental clutter. Endless internal debates begin to fade because you are confident in your judgment. Another reason self-trust silences doubt is that it creates emotional stability. When you trust yourself, you do not panic at every challenge. You have problems with curiosity rather than fear. You ask, how can I handle this? Instead of, why is this happening to me? This shift changes your internal dialogue. It transforms criticism into growth and fear into opportunity. Trusting yourself requires self-awareness and honesty. It means acknowledging your strengths without exaggeration and accepting your weaknesses without shame. This balanced view prevents self-doubt from distorting your perception. You see yourself clearly, and clarity reduces insecurity. In the end, self-doubt is loud when self-trust is weak. But as you build a relationship with yourself based on integrity, resilience, and courage, that doubt becomes softer. It may still whisper occasionally, but it no longer controls your actions. Trusting yourself brings peace. It steadies your mind. It allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that regardless of the outcome, you are capable of navigating your path. Life expands the moment you step out of your thoughts and into experience, because real growth does not happen in imagination. It happens in participation. Thoughts can inspire ideas, create visions, and form plans, but they cannot replace lived moments. When you stay trapped in your head, analyzing, predicting, and questioning, you limit your world to mental simulations. The moment you act, engage, and immerse yourself in reality, your world becomes larger, richer, and more meaningful. Living in your thoughts often feels safe. In your mind, you can control outcomes, rehearse conversations, and prepare for every possibility. But safety inside the mind can quietly become a cage. You begin to overthink opportunities instead of pursuing them. You imagine rejection instead of risking connection. Calculate move instead of embracing spontaneity. Life begins to shrink because it is filtered through caution and doubt rather than curiosity and courage. Experience, on the other hand, stretches you. It introduces unpredictability, emotion, and challenge. When you step into experience, you encounter lessons that no amount of thinking could teach. You learn through interaction, through mistakes, through success, and through unexpected outcomes. Each experience adds depth to your understanding and strengthens your resilience. This is how life expands, not just externally, but internally. When you engage fully with the present moment, you notice details you once overlooked. Conversations become richer because you are listening rather than analyzing. Opportunities become clearer because you are observing rather than assuming. Even simple activities gain meaning when you are present. The world feels larger because your awareness has widened beyond internal dialogue. Stepping into experience also builds confidence. Thoughts often exaggerate risk and minimize ability. But when you take action, you gather evidence of your strength. You realize that discomfort is survivable, that mistakes are temporary, and that growth is possible. Each experience proves that you are capable of navigating life beyond your fears. This confidence encourages you to explore further, expanding your possibilities. Life expands socially as well. When you step out of your thoughts, you open yourself to connection. Instead of worrying about how you are perceived, you focus on being authentic. This authenticity deepens relationships and creates meaningful bonds. Shared experiences place imagined scenarios, and real memories take the place of hypothetical fears. Experience also reshapes your perspective. When you remain in your head, your viewpoint is limited to your own assumptions. When you step into the world, you encounter different ideas, cultures, and emotions. These encounters broaden your understanding and challenge narrow beliefs. Expansion happens when your worldview grows beyond the boundaries of your thoughts. There is also joy in experience that thought alone cannot replicate. Laughter, adventure, creativity, and discovery all require presence. You cannot fully feel the warmth of connection or the thrill of achievement while distracted by analysis. By stepping into experience, you allow yourself to feel deeply and live fully. In the end, thoughts are powerful, but they are only the beginning. Life is meant to be lived, not endlessly evaluated. When you step out of your mind and into the moment, you trade limitation for possibility. You trade fear for growth. You trade hesitation for discovery. And in doing so, you realize that life was always waiting to expand the moment you chose to step into it. In conclusion, the moment you stop living in your head and begin living in the present, everything truly changes. Overthinking may feel protective, but it often creates fear that does not exist, delays action, and weakens confidence. When you choose presence over constant analysis, you gain clarity that thought alone cannot provide. When you take action instead of waiting for perfect certainty, you build real confidence through experience. When you trust yourself, the noise of self-doubt grows quieter and your inner voice becomes stronger. Life begins to expand not because circumstances suddenly become easier, but because you are finally engaging with them fully. Stepping out of your thoughts and into experience allows you to grow, connect, and discover strengths you did not know you had. The world opens up when you stop rehearsing life and start participating in it. And in that participation, you find freedom, courage, and a deeper sense of purpose that overthinking could never give you.